Hi, I'm Clinton Muntean with Mainline, and this is an episode of Sound Connections. Today we got Jason Waufle from Shure. How you doing, Jason?
Good, Clinton. Thanks for having me. Happy
No
to be
worries.
here.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like very last minute.
Yeah, I was down here in Florida doing some rounds, seeing some customers, having some fun, and I mean, you got this setup just ready to go in here, right at this experience center.
Exactly.
So why not? Why not pop in and say hi to some people while I can?
I have to say that I was a little bit let down because Craig said after your day of golf today that you look like a lobster, but you don't look that red to me.
I'm not that lobstered. I was saved by Craig on, I think it was hole 4 or 5. He looked at me and said, "Hey, Irish, have you put any sunscreen on?" Yes. And I had not at the time. And so then I did. I recovered nicely, I think. My wife will thank you very much, Craig.
Yes.
The Florida sun is significantly, we're a lot closer than we are in Nashville, right? And it's out a lot more. So my fair skin doesn't love it.
I was born that way too. I suffer. So let's talk about what you're doing for Shure. So you've been there how long now? Is it like, it's got to be...
We're like flirting with 2 years.
I was just going to say
just about 2 years. Yeah. So started with them 2 years ago. It's been, as with anything you talk about over the last couple of years of all of our lives, an interesting situation for all. But to start a new job, and we moved across the country to take this job. When I say we, my wife and I grew up in Las Vegas. We lived in Vegas at the time, and the job required that I be in the Midwest or Southeast. So we moved to Nashville, which has been fantastic. But it's been a fun 2 years to learn a new city and a new job collectively, right? On top of all the other things going on. But very few complaints in regards to the rest of the world, right? So I still have a great job. Shure's been fantastic to me through those 2 years. Great company. We love Nashville. And I get to do things like this and come down to Florida and see you guys for a little while and stuff that I never would have done if I didn't make that plunge and make that change.
So where's your wife from?
My wife is from, well, we're both pretty much from Las Vegas, right? So, I mean, Southern California. She moved from Southern California when she was young, I think 7 or 8, and then lived in Vegas the rest of her adult life.
Move over to Nashville.
Yep.
For this great job.
Yep.
And do you have a network there, or are you like don't know anyone? You get a place. And you don't know the restaurants, you don't know the...
Nothing. Yeah.
Nothing?
I mean, a few people from my previous life in broadcast production that I knew in the area. And then the rep firm in that space, I was tied in pretty quickly with up in Nashville. And so, made pretty good work friendships with those guys fairly early on. And they kind of helped show me around, but we moved. I can get into this a little bit, right? We moved in the first week of November. We had gotten married 6 weeks prior to that. It was a whirlwind of a year. It was great, and it was all self-inflicted.
Just do it all in 1 year.
Yeah, right. Just knock it all
like
out.
A Band-Aid.
Rip it off. Yeah. And then we also own and operate a holiday decor business, my wife and I, in Vegas. So we moved the first week of November after getting married, doing our honeymoon, packing everything, loading the U-Haul, drive across the country. We were only in Nashville for 2 weeks before we turned back around, flew back to Vegas, did 2.5 weeks of the holiday decor business, had Thanksgiving with the family, went back to Nashville for what was like 10 days at the time, early in December, flew back for Christmas, took all of that holiday decor down. So we didn't really settle into like being in Nashville until after the new year. And that was pandemic central right? That's when it really all kicked off. So right as I was like settling down in Nashville in the new space, sinking my teeth into this Shure job, the world shut down. So,
well, I mean, the inside of your place in Nashville probably didn't look much different than the inside of your place in Vegas, right?
Exactly. Yep. You got a TV on the wall and a couch in the living room, and we took very quickly to the outdoors during some of our free time during the pandemic. And coming from the desert in Las Vegas, we didn't really know what fall or trees or streams were. So we did a lot of camping, a little bit of kayaking. We have a German Shepherd that we take out all the time with us, and she's very spoiled because of that. So it was good, man. It was
nice.
Good. Yep.
So what took you into our industry? So you're a musician?
Drummer. Yeah. Started
so
so no. Yes. Not a musician. Yeah. Percussionist. What are notes? No. orchestral percussionist. Okay, I played the marimba, which is basically a piano with mallets. Yeah, I guess you could say really early on, my parents decided to put me into a magnet program for communication and creative arts at first grade in Las Vegas. So I took a bus to elementary school that was a 45-minute trip. So, but it was great because that school, like in third grade, we were putting on mini news broadcasts every morning, right? You see that stuff happen in high schools pretty frequently, but not in third grade, right? So I did the magnet school program thing up until 8th grade, and then I wanted to have some friends locally, so I went to the local high school, but did tech theater and musician and band stuff all growing up, right? And knew I wanted to do something that was, I guess, music technical related. I actually did a lot of lighting in high school, and then played in band quite a bit. So, I kind of followed the same path a lot of people do. I moved to LA in my younger 20s. I think right at 20, actually, I moved to Los Angeles and went to recording school out there. Thought I was going to be a studio engineer, cutting records, and quickly learned that was not only a extremely difficult path to get into, but not necessarily even the most rewarding or lucrative one in a lot of ways. So I was sweeping floors in this little studio in Hollywood that was pretty horrible, actually. And I went home to Vegas one weekend after I'd finished audio school, and I got on Craigslist, and I found this. At the time, Craigslist was, not
that's
quite,
where you went,
not quite what it was, what it is today, right? And there was this job ad for this RF support tech at a shop called Soundtronics Wireless, which is a boutique RF coordination firm on the West Coast. And I walked in the front door because I had to leave to go back to LA that afternoon. And I walked in the front door and gave them my resume, and the owner at the time said, "You're the only one out of 45 applicants that took the time to come down here and drop this off personally." And that was it. That spoke to him enough, and the resume had enough on it to make him think it was worth it, and he hired me on the spot.
Nice.
That turned out to be a insane last decade of my life of broadcast RF engineering on some pretty awesome shows.
Yeah. So what was that like? I mean, I've never been on a tour or been on a real show.
Yep.
I mean, I've got to peek my head in, here and there during my time in the industry here. But so what kind of things did you do, and what kind of people did you do it for, or venues?
Yeah, we were mostly television-based events. So I did a ton of Showtime Boxing. I've done a few Super Bowls from the perspective of the desk show that's out front, not necessarily the main halftime show. There's some other very respectable guys in our industry that do that. I've done country music awards, Grammys, Billboard Awards, large award shows, and then corporate events, right? You get a couple hundred channels on a big corporate event in Vegas. That's kind of the mecca for corporate conventions. We did a lot of those. So there was no job that was necessarily too small for us, but we ended up doing some very hundreds of channels of coordination, custom antenna designs, and I guess back to your question, what is that like? That I think it varies quite a bit from show to show, at least in my world, right? If you're on a tour and you're on a bus and you're going from stadium to stadium or venue to venue, I've never done that, but I assume that while it is a different city and a different venue, so much of what you're doing is the same, week in and week out, or night in and night out, I should say. And while, I would do one Showtime fight a month or whatever it may be, and that was kind of rinse and repeat, we were always in what seemed like a new place with a different set of fighters and a different, walk in, whatever, tonight we have 2 rappers or whatever that might be, right? So it was always new. It's extremely long hours. You some days you've got a fight on Saturday night and you fly in Friday evening and you show up at Saturday morning at 4 a.m. and you put a whole broadcast suite into an arena You shoot a live television show for 6 hours or whatever it may be, and then you rip it all out. And it's been 24 hours that you've been in that venue working constantly, nonstop, right?
That's crazy.
So they take really good care of you in broadcast. I think I was fortunate to maybe make the leap directly to the television side of things because there seems to be a little bit more of a budget involved on those shows. So oftentimes you get more set days for a large shoot, whereas you're not coming in with one day to set things up, right? The award shows, right? We're talking about 7 or 8 days of install and fine tuning a system before it actually broadcasts, which is luxury, really. So it varies, I guess is the answer.
So how does a musician, communications background, and recording arts person end up in RF? Because, we all know signal flow and what happens when you talk into this microphone. But, RF is like, some people say it's like voodoo or black magic.
The voodoo
right?
magic.
So you walk into this place, they give you a job, and I can't imagine that you were designing systems right off the bat.
No. So
how did you transition from audio,
music based into the RF side of things?
Yeah.
There are a lot of fundamentals about RF that are very similar. They don't necessarily cross over as easy as maybe some others, but you talk about signal flow with a microphone, like there is a direct signal flow correlated to wireless. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
There is, right? And even more so when you get into patching DAs or combiners, right? So maybe I see that correlation more than others because I was taught that in a way for a long time and I lived and breathed it. But the reality of that situation is that I got really lucky with a Craigslist ad. I was sick and tired and broke of living in Los Angeles. And I needed this job to change some things, right? So I got fortunate enough that I was in a position where I had some really good mentors at Soundtronics that took the time to teach me what I needed to know, while at the same time I think I spent the time that was needed. If there was a slow shop day, which there often was, I'm taking gear off the shelf and I'm plugging it in and I'm asking questions and I'm breaking it to a certain degree, right? Not physically breaking it, but like understanding what makes it function and what makes it not function, and do some of my own research and was pretty thirsty for reading material, right? I remember asking when I started doing comms, I did a bunch of RFPLs and comms as well on the broadcast side of things. And there's this great, it's probably got to be, I don't know how old it is, but it's a black and white, I think it's written by RTS and it's like the Communication Engineer's Handbook. And it's old. It's been around a long time. But it's brilliant. It's everything you would need to know to run 2-wire PL in a 40-page pamphlet with photos and graphics. And I distinctly remember reading that, and then we hired a new person maybe 6 or 9 months later, and I was like, hey, you should read this book if you want to know how to do comms.
Did they read it?
They did not. No.
See, I think because when you were explaining that a minute ago, a thought that came to mind was, as the business owner of Soundtronics, to stumble upon an employee that has that thirst, as you put it, is a pretty rare thing. That people that really dig in and want to learn and excel. And so, I'd imagine that's why you had a long career there. What about the guy who didn't read the pamphlet? Is he still there? We won't name his name.
He is still there.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So he learns just in a different way.
Yeah, correct. I think he just learns in a different way.
Yeah.
He's doing very well. Just a different learning style.
Ready to start your very own podcast? It's never been easier to get a podcast started. Just make sure
that your audio doesn't sound like this.
Bad audio will get people to turn your podcast off long before you have a chance to bore them with your actual content. And the easiest way to get professional quality audio is with the Shure MV7 podcasting mic. Yes, this was made specifically with podcasters in mind. Inspired by the legendary SM7B, the MV7 has incredible voice isolation technology, so you can record in any room. No sound-treated studio required. There's a built-in headphone jack included on the mic, and a built-in touch panel for easy adjustments during your show. But the pièce de résistance is the dual XLR and USB output. Plug this directly into your computer and get access to the Shure Motive desktop app, or plug it into your mixer or interface.
No more cruddy audio.
Your audience deserves better, and you deserve the Shure MV7.
If I'm talking to a room of students or like a group of people and they go, hey, your career is impressive to me. How did you get to where you are? And I say, look, if you asked me 15 years ago if I wanted to be a broadcast RF tech that did boxing and corporate events, I would tell you, A, I don't even know what that means. And B, no, not really. That's not what my dream was, I guess. But it was it was a great career. I got to travel on everyone else's dimes. I got to eat incredible meals. I got to see some awesome events, and I was very, very close to the industry that I loved and wanted to be in.
I mean, you're right there, like side by side, really, right? You are, and it is part of our industry. So I guess it's kind of like if you're going to school to become a recording engineer, and you end up going on that long, hard path, and you finally get to like record, I don't know, this
double platinum record.
double platinum record with this great artist that you've worshipped your during your young years. So, but it must be just as exciting to, you got your system up and running, it's ready to rock, the broadcast is live, and you're sticking around to watch the boxing match. I would imagine you have to be there.
Absolutely. I mean, when I did boxing, I you put lavaliers on the referee and the two trainers, and there's only one set of those lavs, the way that the patching works, right? So after every fight, I'm climbing through the ropes as soon as the bell rings or as soon as somebody's knocked out, and going to retrieve those packs so that I can go back to the locker rooms to put them on the next set of guys.
Oh my gosh.
So like if you watch a Showtime fight from the last decade, outside of the last 2 years, if you look closely, you'll see me in the ring right after the fight, right? And so that's not to brag or say anything, but
that's pretty cool.
It was very cool, and I was not a massive boxing fan prior to getting that gig, but that Showtime family was amazing, and they run a great ship over there, and the crew that's on that show has been, a lot of those guys have been doing it for 30 years, and that's kind of their bread and butter, and they treat them right, and they do that. But I'm standing on the sidelines at the Super Bowl, getting paid an incredibly great wage, right, to do something that is very audio related and is melding the two things that I really love, which is sports and technology and audio. And it's not at all what, if you asked me 15 years ago, what I wanted to do. So, there are people that have the just exceptional determination and drive to like follow their very specific pigeonholed dream. Mm-hmm. And I'm not here to tell you not to do that, but I am here to tell you that if you're not that person and you want to just be successful in your industry, there are so many avenues to do that, specifically in this one.
Well, cool. So what about, so now fast forward, you've been in Nashville. Well, I guess it hasn't really been that long, but
it hasn't. No,
but now you're doing something similar for sure. So you have all this experience working for Soundtronics, working on like so many different types of projects, whether it's a sports thing or a corporate thing, little RF system, big RF system. Yep. So how did the Shure gig come about? It wasn't on Craigslist.
It was not on Craigslist. No, Shure did not post its job on Craigslist. That's good. No. I was tired of being gone 200 plus days a year. My wife at the time was a teacher, and I traveled pretty consistently like Thursday through Monday if I would go do a weekend sporting event or something. And so, she'd be at work Monday through Friday, and she'd get off, and I'd be on a plane somewhere and be gone all weekend. Yeah. And I'd come home late Monday night, and I'd see her for dinner on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and be gone.
You're out again, yeah.
And I loved what I did. I absolutely loved what I did, and I love Soundtronics. And I felt like I had gotten to a place where I was almost kind of in a plateau, like growth personal growth and professional growth wise. And so I just kind of started putting some feelers out with the idea that I could find either the next level in live production job for myself, or B, a job that was still in the industry but gave me more time at home and some more flexibility. And Shure was the first application. As I had this internal discussion, I think maybe a week or so later, I started job hunting, and I hopped on LinkedIn, and there was this job post
there
for
it was.
this professional pro audio market development position. And I had a great relationship with Jen, who is my version of Shure market development, but on the West Coast. And she was my point person when I was at Soundtronics, who I called and leaned on from a Shure perspective. I had so much respect for her, and she had nothing but praises about working for Shure. And she was just the most exceptional person from a service and relationship, really set the bar. And I found that job listing and said, that seems like fun. I could do that, right? I can still be very related to the industry that I know and love over the last 10 years. I have relationships that make sense in that industry. Yeah. And it worked out, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Jen's phenomenal.
Jen's fantastic.
I mean, we don't get to work with her often because we're East Coast, but she's been down here a couple times. I've seen her up there in Chicago once or twice. But that's great. So is there something, I know the pandemic and your travel at Shure has probably been, somewhat lessened. Is there an example of something that, some experience you had in the past that has helped you or helped a customer? So you're often out there meeting with people, or sort of helped you solve a problem for a customer, or just...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean...
Absolutely. I mean, like all of it, I think, right? If first of all, I don't get this job if I don't have 10 plus years.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
field,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's just not going to happen. And specifically, one instance of something that I tell this story a lot, and it seems to help quite a bit of people understand outer band RF interference. I was doing a Kelly Clarkson Christmas special in Vegas at the Venetian. I actually wasn't even doing it. I got called at like 2 p.m. on a Friday by the A1, the engineer at the time, who was mixing the broadcast side of this Kelly Clarkson special. And he said, "Hey man, we are having some serious RF problems. We are shooting this thing tonight in like 6 hours." And whoever it was that was supposed to be handling the RF at the time was just in the weeds, right? And I'm at the Soundtronics shop down the street, and I said, "All right, I'll be down there in a little while. I'll come help you guys out." So I go down there, and I bring the analyzer and some of my tools, and I'd get everything kind of squared away, and I'd tune everything back up, do a quick coordination, move some antennas, some of the stuff to help things go. And it's all fine and dandy. We're like an hour and a half now from downbeat, right? And out of nowhere, the entire RF rack, all the RF meters, just full pegged, light up like a Christmas tree.
That's not good.
And I asked the guy who was there before, I said, is this what your problem was? Because I honestly didn't feel like I did that much when I came in prior to that. Like, I moved a couple things around, but it wasn't that bad. He said, "Yeah, this is the problem I've been having. The rack just lights up like crazy, and I can't find out what it is." So I had an analyzer at the time with a directional sniffer antenna on it. And I'm trying to find where what appears to be wideband interference lighting up the RF rack is. And I'm looking around, and I turned the whole RF rack off, except for one of the receivers, and it went away. And I said, "Well, that's odd." So I start turning things on one by one, and what it turned out to be was a piece of rope light that was inside the back of the RF rack to give you light to work on the system in the back. Well, something in that rope light has shorted and was causing an arc. And really, you had to be within like 6 inches of it to see what was just massive, full wideband RF interference. Yeah. Like, if you would have taken the receiver out of that rack and moved it 2 feet away, it wouldn't have seen it. But because it was in this metal box and there was a rope light inside of it, that arcing piece of rope light was causing so much close interference. The whole RF rack was desensitized.
Oh my gosh.
So I unplugged the rope light, and we went off to the races. was great. But like,
that's crazy.
You know, if somebody talks to me about outer band interference or an arcing light bulb or, you know, what can cause interference to my RF rack? Anything that's got power on it can generate.
Yeah, that's crazy. So even though that little rope light probably had like a little FCC or CE stamp on it, it was probably not up to par.
It had been in there for, I assume, multiple years. It was a road used rack.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you'll see that all the time. We see rope light or LED strips put in the back of racks all the time.
Cause problems. Yeah.
Just be aware that occasionally, if they have an electrical issue, you might be hurting yourself. Yeah.
That's nuts. Yeah. So
hopefully that answered
well,
that
yeah.
question.
I mean, I could see where you know, now you go on site and sniffing out a problem, and that experience and all the other experiences you had, you know, help you, you know where to look.
Yeah. And that's definitely part of the RF. I mean, with anything, right? You sit on a desk long enough, you know how to get through the menus to find something that's wrong. It just becomes second nature, right? It's what you did. I think the reality of RF is that there's just not enough people that do just RF. Or if you have multiple hats you wear, RF seems to be one thing that people either are afraid of or just don't spend the time to fully understand what is going on, whether because they can't or they have too much going on. But like if I sit down with somebody that's a great audio engineer and talk to them about the signal flow of RF, the light bulbs start to go off. And like once you understand that some of the basic principles of RF, it doesn't change, right? We're not changing the physics of RF, right? So if I had one piece of advice, if RF is in your workflow, like spend like 3 months of hardcore RF deep diving if you can. There are Shure Audio Institute on our website has hours of wireless masterclass and webinars and videos, and there's so much resource out there to watch and understand some of the RF principles that you don't have to be top of the game RF engineer to be a very efficient RF technician for your small corporate gig or for your tour or for your venue. At least I don't think so.
Yeah, and in the past, pre-pandemic, we've done some of those classes in person. So, I know they're all online, and actually pre-pandemic, many of them weren't.
Yeah.
And of course, Shure worked very quickly to get those things online, and but once things get a little more comfortable here,
I can't wait.
Yeah, we'll do them here at the Experience Center. We got we can get 30 people in here. Absolutely. And then and then we can take it on the road again like we used to. So
yeah, that was right at the beginning of, obviously we talked about this when I got hired, but I'm as sick as anybody of the webinars and the Zoom calls and the remote meetings and all of those things. So it doesn't mean that information isn't there, right? So, but yeah, as soon as we can get 30 people in a room or more and do some RF classes.
Yeah, and I think there's something to like when you have a system in the room and you do things on purpose to interfere versus seeing it online versus, bringing in that interference into the room and experiencing it. And,
so much of that, like in all aspects of the virtual learning, right? Like the tangible reactions of reading the room and hands-on and feel-on and all those things. As much as we're trying to recreate things virtually, I just don't know.
And of course, usually when we do an event, if it's in the afternoon, there's like beer afterwards. So there's that part.
There's the perks.
Are you a country music fan?
I am.
Okay.
So a country
I was going to
fan.
make the assumption you weren't, being, your time in, you're Vegas and Southern California.
Yep.
So that kind of worked out.
Absolutely. I remember like looking at my wife and saying, "Hey, I think we could do Nashville," and she lit up like a Christmas tree because she's a pretty big. We were talking the Shure's headquarters are in Chicago.
Yeah, and
initially there was some talk about maybe we would relocate to Chicago, and being from the desert, the winters there seemed pretty daunting.
Yeah,
and we had some internal conversations about where else would make sense, and obviously Nashville being the music capital of the world.
Yeah.
And so a little known fact about Jason Waufle, I frequent the country line dance bar, or used to. I'm quite the line dancer.
Well, you will again.
And the two-stepper.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Your wife too?
Yes. Yeah. That's. I feel like that's how I swept her off her feet, partially, to be honest. There's a great country bar in Vegas called Stoney's. We used to go to all the time with a fairly large group of people. That's kind of where my love for country comes from. But yeah, so that worked out great. It's obviously the country mecca. The locals in Nashville will tell you that they're sick of country music, but it's still got the pulse in that town. That's for sure. Yeah.
And I would argue that country music isn't really country music anymore.
Pop. It's pop music.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's taken over the popular.
So what's next? Like, I mean, you're still new at Shure, really, because you the pandemic is sort of
delayed,
or at least hindered.
Yes.
Some of the stuff you're supposed to be getting out there and doing.
Correct.
So, I mean, let's say pandemic
disappears tomorrow.
Disappears tomorrow. What are you doing next?
Meeting and getting to know all of the people in this part of the country that I should know already, right? From being here for 2 years. Get back on the road a little bit. Getting tapped into, like we have relationships with all of these touring engineers or monitoring engineers that are on these tours that are going out now and going to do these shows. But you call these camps up and say, hey, can we come by and say hello and swing by? And they're like, no, they're in a bubble, right?
Yeah.
They have locked. You can't. They
got to stay healthy on the tour.
Can't get a pass. I can't get any. There's very little access. So, to go provide the support and show the, some of the stuff that Shure is always working on, new and exciting things, and get some feedback and build those relationships. So yeah, just getting out to meet the people in this part of the country that maybe I know of, and maybe they know of me, but we've never had the chance to get in the same room. Yep. That, getting back to what we talked about before, right? Some in-person classes, get 30 or 40 people in a room, have an RF seminar, see some light bulbs go off, right? I love that. I really do.
Hopefully not in the back of the rack.
Yeah, hey. Yeah, no rope light in the back of your racks, everybody. But I enjoy, like, I'll go speak at some educational institutions, and I've done one or two like recorded videos, and it's so just not the same, because I love being in front of a room full of students, and you can see some faces, or you can see somebody question something you just said, and immediately I'll say to that person, what's up, what's on your mind? I despise having a conversation in front of 40 people that is one way. Maybe that's just my style. I like to feed off reactions.
That's great.
But
I think the audience appreciates it too.
Yeah.
Keep them engaged. Good. So we look forward to having you here. So
thank you.
Yeah. And then, I think the timing might be just right, because, you're a new dad.
I am.
And I think about a year in, you're going to be like, I got to get the heck out of here.
I got to go. I hope my wife doesn't listen to this. Love you. Yeah, I am.
No, she's going to feel the same way.
Right?
But,
please go.
And you're going to be...
Please. I do. I mean, that did happen early on, right? Like, the pandemic happened, and I remember one of my first work trips, and she was like, oh, I'm going to have the house to myself for like 3 days.
So you're going to go away for a few days, and then she's going to be like, I need to go to like the local JW or whatever to get a night's worth of sleep without getting up in the middle of the night. So
our anniversary was not that long ago, and the gift I gave her was a certificate to go get a massage whenever she would like to do that, and then I gave her a handful of basically like full night tokens. Like, you pick the night, and you can go sleep in the guest room, or like we'll figure it out. But like, I'll take the baby
get a
for
full
the
night
night
of sleep.
You go get a full night's sleep, because I get that. I got that last night for the first time in a while, right? When I'm on the road,
right.
I stay in a hotel.
We didn't put you the one with the train next to it.
I know. I'm not going to play this for my
You're going to be in trouble. Yeah.
I'm so dead.
You're in trouble. We might actually send it to her. Give us her email address. Yeah. We'll just send her. No, we'll just send her this clip.
Yeah. Just edit it down.
Not the whole podcast. She'll be bored.
That's true. Right. Yeah. She wouldn't make it all the way through to this point. Yeah. So that's been fun. That's been interesting. 7-week-old baby, and
well, I mean, it's a good time to do it.
Yep.
You got more flexibility now, and then like I said, when we're all able to travel more freely and get together in larger groups, I think the timing will probably work out.
Agreed.
So,
looking forward to it. I'm sure
yeah.
everybody that's listening will be as well. So
Yeah.
hopefully I'll see everyone that is hearing my voice in person sometime
Yeah,
soon.
and you guys can all look him up on the LinkedIn or something if you want
Jason
to see.
Waufle,
Yeah.
like the breakfast food.
Yeah, but spelled differently
different.
though. It's spelled
Exactly.
differently, so just
Yeah.
pay attention. WAUF,
F-L-E.
one F, yeah.
Correct.
Well, thanks for coming in last minute.
Yep. Oh, by the way,
literally walk out in, have a day out on the road with customers and walk in here and do a podcast.
oh, by the way, you want to do a podcast?
Yeah, I appreciate your willingness to do that.
Yeah. Thanks for having
And
me.
at least we didn't bring out any of the embarrassing stuff that we know, but we just kept it,
That's for the after
professional.
hours.
We kept it professional. Yeah, that's what we should do. We should have an after hours version. Yeah. So, well, thanks everybody for listening.
Yep.
And this was another episode of Sound Connections. And hope you tune in next time.